Bring your dreams to life with a 5-year vision. I'd like to share a quote from you from Dan Sullivan. The only way to make your present better is by making your future bigger. And that's what I'd love to share with you guys today. As we look ahead to 2025, I'm going to walk you through how I periodically create a 5-year vision for my life. And then I use that vision to work backwards to create my annual plan for the year, such as 2025. And then once I know what I want to do that year, I create my quarterly plan, and that guides me to the specific activities that I need to do and focus on each quarter so that every quarter I am making progress toward reaching my 5-year vision. In this video and podcast today, I'm going to share my wisdom from creating visions and plans for years. So whether it's your first time or your 10th time really creating a vision for your future life and then breaking that down into an annual action plan, you are going to have takeaways that will make this easier and more effective for you. And I'd like you to know that creating this long-term vision is such a big deal to me. It's the first step in my Freedom Blueprint, which is a free guide that guides you as a real estate investor through the 10 essential pieces that every real estate investing business needs in order to get financial and time freedom. Go to adriennegreen.com to download it today and learn what the other 9 steps are. Link is also in the description. As we dive into this 5-year vision, I really want to first start with, why do we do this? Why do you need to take the time to think about where you want to be in 5 years? For some people, this is a really tough thing to do, and you deserve to know why you're doing this work. First, let's think about if you were to go on vacation. Do you just show up to the airport and see where the flights are going? That would be crazy, right? You plan it out. You make sure you know where you're going, you choose a place you want to go to, and then you set up everything to have success at that place. You make sure you have the right clothes for the weather. You read about what to do there so that you're ready to go do these activities. Maybe you go ahead and make some reservations or appointments beforehand for things that are popular. And we take that as a granted for something as simple as a vacation, that we're going to think about and be intentional about it beforehand. And yet, often people don't put in the same amount of effort in planning where your whole life is going to be in 5 years down the road. And by doing this, by taking this planning, you can optimize your effort and activities to most easily reach your desired life goal destination in 5 years. When we know where we want to go, we can make sure all of our actions are helping us get there and not wasting our time doing other stuff. Okay, so that's the first reason that I really believe in doing this visioning, is so that we know where we want to go and we can optimize our actions to get there and not waste time, energy, money on anything else. The second reason I believe in this so much is because progress compounds. By working toward your 5-year goal starting now, you're setting the foundation that you will build upon in future years. You'll build on what you do now so that you can definitely reach those goals by year 5, if not earlier. If we don't know where we're going and we don't start laying that foundation, that shortens our time horizon for getting it done, and we're not able to have that compounding. If you're a real estate investor, you know the power of compounding with money and with other aspects like that, and so we can apply the same thing with our time. Now, I have a specific example of how progress can compound. And as you may know, I'm currently traveling the world with my family full time, right? We are digital nomads. And I had a vision a long time ago of us traveling the world together. But I will say, in my vision, my kids were a few years older. We were a few years further along. But because I had this vision, we prioritized travel immediately so that we could teach my kids how to travel. You can't go from 0 to 100, right? Kids don't go from crawling to running races. They usually start with some walking and some missteps. And so I knew that for my children to travel well, where we could do it all the time and do it well and have it be a joy, it was something we needed to train. So we did trips, right? We weren't traveling full time, but we did a lot of travel on their school holidays. And as an example, I traveled over 10% of the time in 2023, and much of that was as a family. So because we had that vision of where we were going to go, we were able to start taking those baby steps of taking some trips, teaching my children how to travel, how to behave in hotels, how to work with elevators, all of that. So we learned and built our skills for travel. Because of that, when the opportunity presented itself that we were selling our last in-person business and everything else was virtual, I was able to jump on that and we were able to start traveling sooner than I had originally envisioned. Honestly, I think it was 3 years earlier than I had originally envisioned. And we're able to do it well because we had been laying that foundation and taking those baby steps, knowing where we wanted to go. All right. And I have one more reason, my third reason why it's worth it to take the time to do this visioning. And that's because it activates the reticular activating system. Once you know what you're going for, you're going to start to see opportunities to get there. So, for example, when my husband and I were doing our normal family finance meeting after I decided to sell my real estate team, we were able to realize, wow, we can start traveling full time now, not a few years down the road, because we had activated that reticular activating system to look for travel opportunities, to look for a travel lifestyle. So, when it presented itself, we were able to identify it and make it happen. So now that you know why I believe in creating this 5-year vision, let's talk about the first step in doing so, which is developing your 5-year impossible goals. So how do we develop these 5-year impossible goals? I'd like you to set aside some time, 30 to 60 minutes, where you're going to sit down and not have distractions and really allow yourself to dream about what your life could look like in 5 years. I want you to dream about your personal and your professional desires. What do you want to have in your life in 5 years? And maybe think about why. What difference would that make? What would that do for you? And there are a couple things, a couple hangups or blocks that people can have that I want to address here. You can want things just because you want them. You don't need to justify what you want. Sometimes people come from a background where they feel guilty for wanting things or think that if they get something that someone else isn't getting it, right? We have an abundance world where you getting an abundance of things is not taking it away from someone else. In fact, often it's helping other people get abundance as well. And then the second thing I want to say about this as you dream about these big personal or professional desires is most people overestimate what they could achieve in 1 year and they underestimate what they can achieve in 5 years. So often you want to think bigger than you are initially. And that brings me to the second point, which is I really want you to write down goals that seem too big, okay? Impossible goals are really powerful because they force us to focus on two things. One, what we need to prioritize, right? If we have a 10x goal or something that's really huge, we need to say, okay, what would we absolutely need to do to make that happen? And then two, what do we need to eliminate, right? In order to do these big things, there's a lot of playing in the small pool, playing safe that we need to cut out of our life in order to get there. So I want you to really think big, think crazy, think audacious, and use that to consider what would you need to prioritize and do more of, and what would you need to eliminate from your life. And so, for example, if I was to use the example again of us now traveling the world full time, what do we need to eliminate? We needed to eliminate some staying at home in order to travel more and practice that more, right? And so, especially when we consider traveling full time, eventually, there are things that would need to be eliminated in order to have the pros of traveling full time. And it's okay. There are pros and cons to everything. There are both sides of an equation. All right. Other thing I want to mention here as we really dive deep into these impossible 5-year goals is the quote from Marianne Williamson that our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. There really are a lot of limiting beliefs or issues that can come up as you consider these big, audacious goals for your life in 5 years. And that's normal. And knowing that can help you recognize when maybe these limiting beliefs are coming up and move past these fears or limiting beliefs. So I want you to be aware of this and consciously work to release any fears or limiting beliefs and consider this question. This can help. If failure wasn't an option and all resources were available to you, what would your life look like in 5 years? That can get your creativity spinning and help you realize what you need to prioritize, what you need to eliminate, and what you can really accomplish. Now, as you're doing this brainstorming and you're thinking about these big goals for 5 years, I want you, as you refine them, to highlight measurable outcomes. We want to be able to quantify things. It helps us realize how we're going to get there. So some examples are the number of properties you may want to have, financial freedom milestones, things like that. It's easier for us to do our next step of reverse engineering how we're going to get there if we understand the scale. For example, if somebody wants $100,000 a year in passive income versus $1 million a year in passive income, their paths are going to look very different. Versus if we just had the goal of passive income, we might not realize the difference in that scale. So putting quantity on it is helpful. And whatever your quantity is fine. It doesn't matter. The key is that you know the quantity you need. How much money, how much time, how many doors, how much freedom, how much time spent vacationing, whatever that looks like for you. Now you've done the hardest part of getting creative, of addressing those limiting beliefs and creating those 5-year visions, okay? What your life is going to look like, this amazing life that you're going to have 5 years. That's the hardest part. Now, the next step is to reverse engineer those key milestones, working backwards so that we can figure out the path to get there. So you're going to break those big milestones into yearly, quarterly, and monthly targets. I know that sounds like a lot where you do it one step at a time. So first, you're going to start with annual targets. Okay, if I want to be here in 5 years, what does that need to look like in 4 years, in 3 years, in 2 years, and in 1 year? And keep in mind that people overestimate what they can do in that 1 year, okay? So don't think you're going to go 0 to 50 in year 1 and then just go up incrementally for the next 4, okay? And again, we want to be quantifiable. Some ways you can do that is amount, time, percentages. Those are all ways we can quantify things numerically. Once you've kind of broken it down into where you need to be each year, let's focus on year 1. Let's focus on 2025. This is where you really want to get specific. What needs to be true on December 31st, 2025 for you to be on track for your 5-year vision? And keep in mind, you're thinking about your whole life, not just work, not just real estate investing, family, relationships, personal time, lifestyle, all of these things combined. So I want you to think about, where do we need to be on December 31st, 2025 to be on track to that amazing 5-year vision? Some examples of that is maybe that by then you need to have bought 2 doors with 8% cash on cash return. Or you need to have 16 houses under contract or already purchased. Or you need to build your net worth by $50,000 to be on track. Or you need to pay off $10,000 of debt by then. Or you need, personally, maybe you, in order to be on track for your fitness goals, by then you need to be able to run a 5K in under 30 minutes. Maybe by then you want to be conversational in French for some personal goals. Those are examples of some great places that you could set for the end of next year. Some non-examples, some things you'd want to steer away from, are saying things like, by then you will have invested in real estate, or bought more houses, or saved more money, or paid off debt, or gone to the gym more, or done Duolingo, things like that. You see the difference there, right? We're not specific, we're not measurable. Those are not great goals, and they're not going to help you get there. And once you know where you want to be at the end of next year, you're going to start to evaluate your current habits, systems, and gaps from where you are now to where you need to be. I want you to think about, what am I doing now that would help me reach that? And what am I doing now that doesn't help me reach that? What am I not doing now that I need to start doing to reach that? Those are 3 ways to view that, okay? And once you've got that in mind, you are on to your last step, all right, guys? And that's to say, okay, here's where I need to be, 12/31/2025. What do I need to do in quarter 1? To be 25% of the way there? You want to create your quarterly, what I call action goals. And you're going to say, where do I need to be that first quarter? And what specifically do I need to be doing either every day or every week to reach that? So you're going to focus on 3 to 5 big picture goals for the first quarter of the year. This is going to allow you to focus for the first quarter and really move the needle in these key areas. And we're not going to stress about something we're going to do all year long, because you evolve, you change, situation changes. We're going to say, these are the actions I'm going to be 100% committed to for the first quarter. And you're going to make sure these align with your 2025 benchmarks, right? Where you need to be at the end of the year. And you want to make sure that they're smart, that they're specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So let me give you some examples. You could say that you're going to attend 1 networking event per week and make 5 contacts. Maybe that's going to help you get those real estate deals, find those off-market properties. You're going to run the numbers on 1 deal each weekday. That's something specific you can do work toward that goal. You're going to listen to one real estate investing podcast episode per week, or maybe more. You're going to review the local market update weekly. That's something you could do. Let's say you wanted to save more money or cut your expenses. You're going to review your personal budget weekly and adjust as needed. Or let's say that you needed to, again, do more lead generation for deals or something else, that you're going to complete 50 two-way conversations every week. You were wanting to run a 5K in under 30 minutes. You could say that I'm going to go running 3 times a week for a minimum of half an hour, something like that, right? If you wanted to get conversational in French, you're going to say, I'm going to spend a minimum of X number of times or do X number of sessions of learning French, things like that. We have quantifiable things where at the end of the week, you're going to be able to say, yes, I did it, or no, I didn't. And in addition to this and setting these quarterly goals that you know you can track every week, we've got to track them, right? So there's 2 keys to success once you've realized what you need to do over the course of the quarter, broken down into actions per week. And the 2 keys to success here are accountability. Is there someone in your world that you could have as an accountability partner and do weekly check-ins and tell them how you're doing, where you've done well, where it's slacked off, and what you're going to do differently to improve it next week? That can be a huge thing and something I highly recommend. And then second, in addition to those weekly accountability sessions, having some sort of evaluation, all right? You want to check in weekly with yourself and record your score on how well you're executing. So my action goals, I've got a whole spreadsheet and they get put in there. And every week I have a time block session on Mondays to go and review the prior week and say, did I get my action goals done? And I give myself a score between 0 and 10. And that way I can quantify and track how I'm doing on those. And then at the end of the quarter, you're going to do an evaluation as well. Did you reach your big picture quarterly goal? And did you do the actions that needed to happen there? What pieces fell into place? What worked? What didn't? And then you can adjust accordingly for the next quarter. You've got the data now in order to adjust. And this kind of quantitative tracking is huge for making sure we actually get to that 5-year vision. So you guys may be thinking, oh my goodness, we started off really like woo-woo and creative and where do you want your life to be? And we ended up with, okay, and now there are specific actions that you're going to check off on the list every week to make sure you get there. And yes, that's how it works, guys. Your 5-year vision isn't a dream, it's a strategy. You set bold goals, you reverse engineer your milestones, and you focus on the weekly tasks that you need to do in order to reach the quarterly goals, the annual goal, and that eventual 5-year vision. Remember, creating this long-term vision is the first step in my Freedom Blueprint, a free guide for you real estate investors. So head on over to adriennegreen.com, link in the comments to download it today, and then the other 9 steps. Then be sure to join me again here next week to learn more about how you can get your time and financial freedom as a real estate investor.